Welcome to the Shack News Chattycast, the podcast that quit Amiibos for good this time. Seriously. Except, oh, that one looks pretty cool. I'm your host, Steve Watts.
I am your other host, Brian Carr. Steve, I want to let you and all our listeners know that the Chattycast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/chattycast. That's ChattyCast. Thanks, Audible.
Thanks. Every week on the Chattycast, we pick a big topic, post about it on the Shack News Chatty, and then we talk about it in detail with your comments fueling the discussion. Hence, Chattycast. This week, our guest is the man who bought all the Amiibos you wanted. Let's get him, fellas. Andrew Zukowski.
Yes, I bought all 2 of the Amiibos that I wanted. Hi.
They were the exact 2 I wanted, though.
Oh, you son of a bitch. So, if the multiple Amiibo references didn't give it away, this week our topic is the toys-to-life genre in general, Amiibos being among them. But first, we are going to talk about what we are playing. And Andrew, as our guest, how about you kick us off here? What have you been playing lately?
I have been slowly trying to get out of bronze in StarCraft 2, and I am racking my brain on making levels in Mario Maker. That is literally taking up all of my time.
Have you made any particularly proud creations that you're like, this is?
I made one that
this is my opus.
I made one. I've made 4 complete levels that I uploaded. The first 3 were very much, what is Mario Maker? Let me do these things and let me make really hard games. And now I'm I'm out of that sophomoric slump, and now I'm like, okay, level design. So I made one that I am particularly proud of compared to the other 3 that I made. So I wouldn't call it amazing, but I put my heart and soul into it.
It's a step. The thing that's frustrated me about Mario Maker's recently, over the last week or so, has been the billion news stories saying, this Mario Maker level is so hard that 11,000 people tried it before one person finished it.
Yeah, but have you seen that level?
I haven't seen the level. I'm not saying that level in particular is problematic, but I'm saying giving that level a lot of attention means everyone's going to be trying to make the next one of those.
I know.
And I don't want that to happen.
But they were going to anyway, though. That's the thing.
I know. I just don't want people to be obsessed with making insanely hard levels. Make well-designed, good levels. And if they're hard, then they're hard. If they're easier, then they're easier. It's okay to be an easy, well-designed level. Yeah, I don't know if people catch the nuance of that. I think we hashed that out on a previous episode.
There's an image floating around, and I won't repeat what the image says because there is inappropriate language in it. But the gist of it is essentially...
Oh yeah, we are always family friendly here on the channel.
Yeah.
Minor P's and Q's here.
Yeah, the working title of Mario Maker should have been Make it your own effing self if you're so GD smart. That's that's the thing. It's I think we are learning a lot that level design is very, very difficult. And
yes.
And so a lot of people, rather than trying to do good level design, are just trying to be I'm just going to be as big a jerk as possible. So
did you hear
my advice?
Go ahead.
I was saying, my advice for enjoying Mario Maker: if you play the challenge modes, do not play anything over normal.
Expert
is. Expert is tough.
Well, it's not even tough. It's just that a lot of the levels just are these asinine things where there's only one way to go through them, and it's it's not a challenge. It's just you are meant to kind of stumble around and figure it out, which isn't really fun.
It's bad. It's bad design is the point.
Mm-hmm.
There was I was hearing a rival podcast. Well, I say rival as if we're running in the same circles, but Giant Bomb, one of the crew members said he made a parody of the autoplay levels where it says don't move, but then if you don't move, you instantly die, and it's super easy if you move. but the title being don't move, all of those are.
That's pretty good.
Just as soon as the stage starts, a bullet bill hits you, which I thought was pretty funny. Because I like the autoplay stages, but I mean,
they're cool roller coasters, I guess.
It's the ingenuity is interesting, but the gameplay isn't.
Yeah, it's just you're watching a Rube Goldberg machine, and we got sick of those in the '80s when they started every '80s movie.
Right, it doesn't even make you breakfast. What's the point?
Yeah.
Yo, great reference, Pee Wee.
Thank you.
Come on, Doc Brown. Anyway, so Brian, what have you been playing lately?
I've been dabbling a little bit in Mario Maker. I haven't had a whole lot of time to play any games. I just kind of work in a little bit here and there when I can. But Mario Maker, I've had some time to play because you can play it while other things are happening. So I've been doing that. I've came up with a couple other levels. Like yesterday, I want to find out how this turned out. I got tired of trying to come up with like good ideas for levels, and I was trying to get more stuff to unlock. So I just basically had an underwater level, and I wrote out in coins the hacky joke, "Water, I hardly knew her," and and then you just like swim past that. You swim past that, and then you get to the goal, and that's it. And
That's the whole level?
Then I think I made some like laughing happen at the end, and I want to see how that turns out because I'm kind of tired of coming with like brilliant gameplay challenges. I just want to start doing stupid stuff, and if I can do stuff like that, that's it. I want that to be like
stuff.
Yeah, like I want that to be the biggest success I've made so far.
Supposedly, I don't know if this is true or not, but I read a rumor that somebody looked into the files in Mario Maker and the Angry Sun is in there. It's like,
cool.
oh, we could have Angry Sun levels.
No.
And that's all we're going to have.
So many Angry Suns just running around.
No power flutter thing. Just the suns.
Yep.
Yeah, just chasing after you forever.
Yeah. There's a guarantee there's going to be more content for that game down the line, whether it's paid or whether it's just leaked out, or it's like doled out like Splatoon. But there's got to be something more than just that. I mean, there's a lot in there. Like it's worth $60, but I can't imagine them just leaving it at that.
And just quality of life updates would be nice. You know, give us checkpoints.
Zoom out. I want to zoom out so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Andrew.
No, I was thirsty for more content after the first week was done. I was like, okay, I did everything. Give me a desert level, please.
I mean, I think it's a game that's best dabbled. You know, like you jump in every once in a while and check out a random assortment of new stages or see what's new from the creators you like, and then jump back out, kind of thing.
But like I'm a gamer, so I spend like 6 hours at a time playing it. So, you know.
You're applying your play of Dragon Age to Mario Maker, and
and my D&D like crafting skills. It's like, yes, I will spend 6 hours making something. Of course.
It doesn't quite have that kind of legs.
And then I've also played a little bit more Metal Gear, and I'm getting to the point where I think Metal Gear. I think I'm getting to the point where Quiet is unbalanced. Like, she can make certain missions insanely easy because I've gotten her the tranquilizer pistol or the tranquilizer rifle, and so like there was a mission where you're supposed to tail this guy because he's like goes and meets with this guy who calls himself the Major, and you're trying to find out what they're meeting about, and like they drive the Jeep up to this like discreet point in the woods, and I followed them, and they spotted me, and then I like said told Quiet to cover me, and like basically within the span of about 2 minutes, 15 soldiers were just dropped. And so I sent them all back to Mother Base, and now I'm getting close to getting the silenced version of that gun.
Oh my god!
Once I do, I think I win the game. Like I'm not sure like there's anything else you can do.
Through the rest. It's like the first like 40 hours of that game are insanely hard, but then after a while you get the tools.
Yeah.
That is
I've got to be getting close to 40 hours. That's the thing. This game is so long. I think it's too long. Like I kind of want to just like I have this frustration. I've talked about it a little bit elsewhere, but I have this frustration with Metal Gear in particular because I think it shows the problem we have. And I know I've talked about this before, but I'm really feeling it now. This problem we have trying to balance the fact that we all want to be part of the zeitgeist. We all want to talk about this stuff with the fact that not all of us have time to play it enough to talk about it. And so like we have to make this kind of conscious decision. Do we shut ourselves off from discussing this stuff, from being part of the community because people just can't seem to quite keep their mouths shut about stuff? Or do we just accept the fact that we can no longer have a pure experience? And like
it's kind of like the movie zeitgeist, but that's a lot easier to solve. You just go in and watch something for 2 hours, and then you're done.
Yeah. With this, you're talking about like possibly like people are saying they put 100 hours into this game before they actually finished it, and I'm willing to do that. Yeah.
All that stuff.
I'm just gonna watch the shredding on YouTube. I don't even know how to get to it. I'm just gonna watch it on YouTube because I don't have time for that. But And I want to do that. I want to engage with this game on that level, but I don't have the ability to sit down for hours at a time and do it. Like I can fit in an hour and a half, maybe once or twice a week, and that's making it challenging. Like I just got to just finished the 20th mission. I think there's like 50, right? So it's slow going. I love the game. I adore it. I think it's great, but that's a problem I think that there's really no solution for. So thank you for giving me this time.
There was an editorial, I think, on was it Kotaku that published an editorial this week that was like, how the hell are we supposed to finish all these long ass games?
Exactly. Like, and the thing is, like, it doesn't really benefit anybody. Like, because I remember when I was a kid, you'd have like one game and you hoped it was like 60, 70 hours long because you could only afford it. But and I think that for the people who are still in that situation where you can only buy 1 or 2 games a year, I think that's great. These games are still that long. But when every game is that long, like I said, I'm probably not even bother with Fallout till next year. Like, there's no reason for me to do that because I'm still going to be playing other stuff.
Man, I gotta play me some Fallout.
I get no sympathy for this ever. But
working in the industry, like you're in a different situation. You
I am very much so.
Choose. But working in the industry, like we kind of are expected to keep up with things and be able to talk about them, and also to be able to consider any of them for Game of the Year. So, like a game comes out that I really want to play and dive into. Right now, I would love to be playing Metal Gear and Destiny like a ton. But another review came in, and then another one came in today. So I've got like these other things that are going to be eating up my time.
Right.
I can't get to that stuff.
And then on top of that, you still have things like family, and you still have to do all this stuff, right?
Yeah, so, like that's that stuff also.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's a problem. I don't know how we can solve it. It's just, and it's the firstest of first world problems, right? Like this is not a real problem, but at the same time,
we learn how to stop time.
Yeah, like it's at the same time, like we're trying to get into this point where we're trying to turn fun into work, and I don't think that's a good path to go down.
For Andrew and I, fun is work. It always is. Anyway.
Is fun.
I have a lot of fun when I work. I'll tell you that. But
yeah, you talking at those impressionable young minds and such.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Brian,
we talked about Mortal Kombat today.
I know you're a fan of Shovel Knight. Have you tried the Plague Knight DLC?
A little bit, yeah.
That is okay. I played a little bit of it. I feel like the bomb throwing mechanic is a lot harder to get a hang of. It still feels like totally solid as a platformer. It's just a harder platformer now.
I don't love it as much as I loved the original Shovel Knight campaign. Partially because I think you're right in that there's a lot more nuance and trickiness to it. And sometimes when I play a game like that, nuance and trickiness are kind of the last thing you really want to worry about. But at the same time, it is really cool like that they went in and changed and like they really built a new game. I mean, the levels and the design and stuff like that are fundamentally the same. Like they're the same levels, same enemy encounters, that sort of thing. But the way that the game has been reimagined in order to accommodate this character's different skill set, I think is really, really interesting. Like they legitimately made a separate campaign, even though it's through the same material.
You're not pogoing on things just as a different skin or anything. You're a completely different kind of. It's a different kind of jumping mechanic, but it's still about that fundamental challenge of like, how do I make it across this ravine using the powers that I have?
Right.
And in his case, it's usually like throw a bunch of bombs, and you're basically floating when you throw a bunch of bombs. But yeah,
but it's good, the fact that it's free is amazing. Like this is content they could very easily charge $10 for. But
and like a year, like more than a year later, I mean, like that is supporting your game, Yacht Club. Kudos.
And it's not going to be the end of it. They've already said there are going to be additional modes, different characters coming.
Yeah, I don't know who the other
they have
knight
two
is.
more campaigns that they have to do.
I think
Spectre Knight and King Knight, and then they have to do the battle mode. Those
Isn't
are
King Knight gigantic? Like how
the things that they still need to release.
I don't even know how they do the King Knight thing because he's so huge. But
and then of course they got to put Shovel Knight in Smash Brothers. So it's this whole thing. Like
please.
Like I don't think it's going to happen, but it has to happen. I want it to happen so bad.
Reddit did an unofficial tally, because with the Smash Brothers poll, and Nintendo doesn't want to share any data with us, so Reddit was like, we'll make our own poll, and Shovel Knight was winning. Granted, this is Reddit. Reddit is a very enclosed ecosystem, ironically, But no, like people want Shovel Knight and Banjo as well. That
Yeah, who
was
cares about
Banjo
Banjo?
Kazooie were number 2. I care about Banjo.
Brian is anti-banjo. Like, it's strange. I can see Shovel Knight fitting into Smash Brothers so easily. Like even more so than Banjo, who actually is an older character. You know, like his moveset just seems like, oh yeah, you could totally build a Smash character out of that. You know,
Sure.
it's pretty funny.
There's good stuff there, and yeah, but we're getting far afield. But yes, the update's good.
The other game I've been playing, besides the Plague Knight DLC when I get a chance, is Skylanders Superchargers, which I figure leads us into this week's big topic. I've been playing some Skylanders Superchargers. I've played, the first couple stages, I guess. This year's is very focused on the vehicles. I'm actually like an unabashed Skylanders fan. I've been playing them since the beginning, so I speak with some authority on the topic of Skylanders. And they made a couple smart moves in this one where it's like, oh, you can set it to a difficulty where they basically say flat out like, this is for adult players who want more of a challenge, and you get like higher experience rewards and stuff.
And this mode is for dumb babies and so forth.
And this mode is for dumb babies, yeah. But like, I've asked about that during press events. Like, hey, I'm an adult. I have a child, but I didn't at the time that I was asking this. But like, I'm an adult. I like to play these games. Do you have anything just sort of like catered more towards me? So they did part of that by ratcheting up the difficulty. They kind of dropped the ball.
To you.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's you're responsible
to
for
me
this.
personally, but they kind of dropped the ball on the other part of that wish list, which is like, let me scroll past the dialogue. Like I can read way faster than they're talking. Just let me like.
I can read.
Like I can read.
I'm an adult and I can read. Let me read.
But it's just so frustrating. How many times in a level in every Skylanders game, including this isn't putting this one in particular on blast, but in every Skylanders game, including this one, like there will be like 10 times in a stage where you run into somebody that's like, "Hey, Skylander, can you blah 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 blah?" And like, they just scroll the text.
It's setting the scene, Steve. Jeez, it's called theater. Gosh,
scrolling so slowly, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. I gotta beat the
suspense.
Guy. let me just do it. But yeah, there's like little things like that just seem kind of slow, and they haven't really addressed it. And also, there's so many vehicle portions that it almost barely feels like a Skylanders game. Like you're spending more time in vehicles total if you have a land, sea, and air vehicle, because every stage has one of each. If you have all three of those options available to you, then you're spending more total time in vehicles than I think you are on foot, which is a pretty weird feeling. That you're like barely doing the traditional Skylanders beating up bad guys thing, and maybe they were just getting sick of that. But I don't know. Last year I thought the mechanic worked really well, the trap team mechanic. Even though I thought the characters were kind of uninspired. This year they don't have that problem as much because they're kind of using up some old characters and just making them these supercharger characters that have vehicles associated with them. But it's Skylanders with racing, basically.
I saw a stream of it. It looked fun.
Yeah.
Have you tried the racing?
I mean, that's the thing. Yeah. Skylanders is fun. Like I'm not trying to insult it by saying like it's Skylanders, because I like Skylanders. But it's at this point, after this many iterations, this is what, the fifth one. You sort of know what you're in for. You sort of know what you're getting.
Yes.
Well, hold on. There's Skylanders, Giants, Swap Force, Trap Team, and Superchargers. Not counting, the mobile ones. And Giants is the only one that I think is just flat out bad. The rest of them are at least pretty good. Anyway, so yeah, Skylanders. That was my take on Skylanders so far. I'm currently writing a review, so all of this could change as I get further in and discover new.
Andrew asked how the racing was. I just wondered if you wanted to follow up on that.
I haven't done racing against a person. I've done like the race tracks where it's just sort of solo and you're collecting little gears to upgrade your stuff.
Right.
But I haven't done racing where it's like racing where you're actually
I don't want to say like it's actually really good, because like Skylanders is a good game, but it's fun. It's really fun. It can go blow for blow.
That surprises me a little bit, because the single person, just collect the gears stuff kind of felt slow to me, and I was like, well, this is odd that I'm in like this, supercharged, crazy hot rod vehicle, and I just kind of feel like I'm puttering along, and I think that's probably because the tracks are so big, and that's probably because they are built to accommodate multiple people. So I guess it kind of makes sense that when you actually do have multiple people, it feels faster and more dynamic. But no, I haven't tried that yet. It's good to hear that it's good though.
It does something really, really well. Mario Kart tends to mess up a little bit. With Mario Kart, you have, racing with people, and then once you hit first, it's staying in first, like by yourself, riding alone and whatnot. With Superchargers, you never really get that much distance from people, so you're constantly like in each other's face, and I like that a lot. So like items were actually really important.
I wonder if it's a product of the if the vehicles just aren't that far from each other in terms of top speed and acceleration. I think the reason that Mario Kart has that dynamic is that some characters are just way faster than other characters. And so if you do get ahead, then you're ahead. But if all the vehicles sort of have sort of a general middle ground, that's sort of what creates equilibrium in all forms of racing. If everybody's about on equal ground, you watch NASCAR, all those cars are basically the same, and they stay real close to each other. So yeah, I will get more into it and write my review probably next week.
Yeah, I haven't heard much about like the other like the console versions people have talked a lot about, but apparently the 3DS version is. Some people have compared it very favorably to Mario Kart 7, so I'm kind of curious about the 3DS version.
That's surprising.
So maybe if I can find that super cheap, I might have to check it out. But I
compliment.
Yeah,
also,
I always get like
for all the talking about racing and on land stuff that we've done, the air stuff is actually interesting. It's not that much like a race. It's more like a Star Fox Light kind of game, which is it actually works really well and it's cool. You do the turnaround while hitting the brake and you do a really sharp turn and things like that. You don't do loop-de-loops and those sorts of things. But it's like I said, Star Fox Light, so it's not as full-featured, but it works well. I think the only one that doesn't work as well as the other two is the water stages, which are, because they're water stages, it's kind of floaty. And
water's never really been a great racing thing to begin with.
Yeah. You shut your filthy mouth. Wave Race was awesome.
I loved Wave Race.
They'll bring it back someday. So moving on to our big topic, that sort of segues neatly. This week saw the release of Skylanders, Activision's yearly Toys to Life juggernaut that has become one of its central financial pillars, which I think is kind of funny. They sort of introduced it as, we have the Spyro license, and here's kind of a weird thing we thought of doing. Now every year it's like, our top earners this year, Skylanders, and Call of Duty. So this comes weeks after the release of Disney Infinity 3.0, which we also talked about on the show, and weeks before the impending release of LEGO Dimensions, and of course amid the continuous mad craze that is Amiibo releases. So the so-called Toys to Life genre is definitely making a big impact on the industry. So this week we were talking about the toy game dynamic in its many forms. How sustainable is a business model that relies on physical collectibles? Are these toys just a physical form of DLC or something more? What does Amiibo's wild popularity, despite hit or miss functionality in individual games, suggest about the trend? And is the tendency to lock content behind particular toys problematic for consumers? I think we can probably break out a lot of these questions by which toy thing we are talking about, because a lot of them are obviously very geared towards one toy or another. Like the tendency to lock content behind particular toys. I know, Brian, that's been a complaint of yours with Skylanders.
Well, with Skylanders,
they make it pretty blatant in Skylanders.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I don't mind, like, okay, so here's a gate, you can't get there unless you have a fire type. Fine. The fact that the game constantly reminds you and basically is one step above saying, if you don't go out and buy these, your Skylanders will die. Like, and
why do you want Stealth Elf to die?
Yeah, like,
what's wrong with you?
And the fact, like,
these Tamagotchis.
Yeah, like Eon is the character that's saying this stuff, and I think Eon is probably one of the worst video game characters in recent memory. Just because, like, he is the pitchman. He's the one hawking you to buy all this stuff. And
I recognize what you're saying, and you're not wrong. But I'm
not. I'm very much right.
In Supercharger's defense, one, Eon has been kidnapped.
Oh, good. Thank God.
That's part of the plot. So he's not the one telling you these things. They have the little mole character from previous games. I don't know if you remember him. I don't actually know his name, but he's the one.
Yeah.
He's the one whose voice tells you, "Hey, this thing is stronger here. Hey, this thing is stronger here." But also, to be fair, I'm 2 stages in, so I can't say that those gates don't exist. But I haven't seen any elemental gates yet. The only gating I've seen is, hey, do you have a water vehicle? Do you have an air vehicle? Okay, then you can do this one. But a land vehicle comes in the starter pack. So narrowing it down to you just need 1 water vehicle, 1 land vehicle, and 1 air vehicle, and you can access seemingly everything. That's a little more consumer friendly, it seems like. So if that's the trend all throughout, then that's much better, and they actually kind of learned that lesson. But I can't say for certain if they did.
And that's good, because I like Skylanders as a game. I mean, it's kind of like Diablo brawler kind of light, and I'm into that. I like that kind of game, but I just don't like being bugged every 5 seconds to buy another stupid toy. I will do that on my own. Okay.
Which, I mean,
you don't have to advertise to me.
That's part of their sort of their gameplay loop in general, is just like making stages kind of hard where your Skylander's going to die on the final boss. This was especially a problem in the very first game, where it's like, it's fucking impossible to beat this this boss with 1 Skylander. It's like, you need an army of them. You need to buy a bunch of toys, or else you cannot beat this boss because he's
or
way
the Skylands will fall.
Yeah, exactly. So that's sort of like just built into it at a fundamental level.
Right.
I think Skylanders has something going for it in that they don't restrict which Skylanders you can use.
Absolutely.
I mean, here and there, like this one's stronger, but it's not like Disney Infinity where it's like, no, only these 5 Star Wars characters in this playset. So if one of your characters does die, it's like, well, we're 5 games into Skylanders. You probably have like a fully upgraded, stealth elf from 3 games ago that you can throw in there and act as bullet fodder for a little while.
You can go into the Skylanders closet, pulling out an appropriate figure. You probably
and I've done that. I've done that plenty of times while reviewing Skylanders.
I know you have a Skylanders closet.
Like all of the ones that came with the review copy died. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm breaking out my Gen 1s.
Yep.
Old school.
Yeah. So it works. It works.
And that is to their credit, that's very, very good. But I think that of the different Toys to Life games, and I can't speak for Lego Dimensions because I haven't played it. Yeah. That one I know aggressively. Aggressively. Oh, you have, okay. But I think that one aggressively pushes the sort of like mercantile, sort of like I'm trying to figure out the right word here, but like that sort of like in-your-face kind of aggressive capitalism more than the others do.
I mean, speaking of mercantile, that sort of leads into one of the questions that I asked, like, are these toys just a physical form of DLC? Like, that's sort of a common criticism of these Toys to Life games in general is, back in the day you'd pay $5 for, a pack of 4 characters in a game, and now you're paying, $7, $8 for 1 character that comes in a little plastic shell that is a physical thing. The sort of only advantage above standard DLC, as I've heard, Activision people point out, obviously, but they're not wrong, is that it's cross-platform DLC basically. Like you can upgrade your Drobot on a Xbox 360, and then when you buy the Xbox One version of the next Skylanders game, he's fine. He's still exactly the same because it's all being stored locally. So that's like
and
sort
why
of the
wouldn't
one
you
advantage.
want to bring Drobot back?
Exactly. Why wouldn't you? Why didn't they bring Drobot back? I was just wondering that aloud to myself today. I was like, you brought back old Skylanders and gave them vehicles, but you didn't give one to Drobot. What the hell?
Drobot don't need no vehicle.
Drobot is a vehicle.
Exactly.
But yeah, at any rate, like the one advantage is that it's cross-platform, but it is, there is this sort of icky feeling that I think some people get that it's like, oh man, I'm paying $8 for a guy.
Well, here's the counter argument that I would have to that. I'm going to play devil's advocate here, but I'm not going to do it from the perspective you think. Because first off, like this
double reverse devil's advocate.
Yeah, like I would argue that not only are you getting like more tangible product than you would for your money with this kind of model. You're also getting sales, and that's really, really important. Like right now, if I want to go pick out a Disney Infinity or a Skylanders guy from Best Buy or an Amiibo, I can do that, and I'll get 20% off. Show me another form of DLC where I can get 20% off just like right off the bat, even if it's brand new.
And every year,
Like,
every year
EA
on Black
accesses
Friday,
it.
it's like last year's Skylanders are like $2. It's
Yeah,
insane.
here's a pallet of Trigger Happies for $10. Go nuts, right? You can do that, and you can't do that with regular DLC. So I think that's a point in its favor. Now, is it more expensive on average than regular DLC? Absolutely, and that we can have a discussion about. But I don't know. If I look at, say, because I brought some little bros with me here. Like if I look, I've got a Yoda. For the people listening, you're not gonna be able to see him, but I've got Yoda here. I got Yoda for $10. Okay. Not only do I get a Yoda that I can play with in the game, I also have a cool little Yoda. And these are neat little figures, right? Like that's something that's kind of, I think, a cool selling point. Does that change the fact that the business model is kind of predatory? No. Like I think that actually makes it worse. But like at least it's something where it's like, okay, for spending this money, I have some kind of tangible thing that if I enjoy this, I can at least look at, touch, or if you're a kid, kids will play with these, right?
And that's one thing that I mentioned in my review of Disney Infinity. That's one thing that I mentioned, that like the figure quality is so high that like even if I weren't playing the game, I would kind of want Anger just to like be on my office desk. Because it's like it's the perfect office desk decoration. He's this little angry guy dressed in an office like little bow tie, little tie and shirt. It's adorable, and it looks great.
I haven't even seen that movie, and I think those figures look so great. I want to get that playset.
They do. They really do.
You have to see that movie.
You do.
I know.
have to see
I
the
will.
movie. It's so
I will.
I watched it on a plane, and I was like, oh, that's the movie.
I've seen it twice. Cried twice. It's
we
great.
want to move on into talking about, you sort of segued into Star Wars, and I want to talk about that, but I want to bring up Skylanders, a different angle from Skylanders that was sort of brought up by one of our chatty members, Lacker. He said, my kids are into Skylanders, and it is a genius business model. They managed to introduce the trap system and the mini Skylanders to get money from people that don't want to drop $10 for a toy. I'm sure eventually they'll release $1 gizmos you can use to unlock powers from your existing Skylanders. Upgrade pogs. So he's being sort of tongue-in-cheek there. He's being, a little down on Skylanders, but I think it is fair to say that like more than other toys to life games, Skylanders has had a tendency to come up with something new every year, and Giants was the lamest example of that, where they're like, they're just real big, and it's like, well, that's stupid. But the Swap Force stuff, where it's like you actually get to mix and match and you see that effect in the game, or the Trap Team, which I thought looked really stupid until I played with it, and I was like, oh, it's like a summon creature you can use to like kind of get yourself out of a jam, and you're still getting upgrade currency for your equipped character, like that's cool. Like that was a cool touch. So, and this year with Superchargers, I don't know, I haven't made my final judgment on whether or not it is quite as clever as either of those gimmicks, but Skylanders at least is like trying some sort of new gimmick every year. And part of that, I'm sure, is business related, where they're like, we need something new to sell the thing,
What do you mean part of it? It's all business related.
Yeah.
It's just like Ninja Turtles, right? You've got the Ninja Turtles toy
people. I mean, to the extent that there are creative people in the studio coming up with this stuff, I think that they are coming up with clever ways
absolutely.
to make it happen.
It's very creative. I'm just saying, it's like the old Ninja Turtles toy line. Okay, we have the original Ninja Turtles. Kids have a bunch of those. We want to keep selling them. Now they've got a lizard, an alligator from down south. He's Cajun, right? And now we also have and now the turtles will talk. So this one, if you pull a little tab through, it'll talk. And so it's the same kind of thing. You're trying to get more mileage out of an existing concept. So like as creative as some of this stuff can be, like as soon as they announced Cars, I'm like, of course they did. Because it's an action figure line. What action figure line doesn't have vehicles? Right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, to move on into Star Wars, I want to like sort of touch on all the major ones. So to move on into Disney Infinity, Ricky Ticky Tube said the core Infinity figure actually looks like a cartoon Olivia Wilde, which he's totally right. It definitely does. But I think that speaks to the quality of the Disney Infinity figures. And for my money, of all the three, big toys to life things, Amiibo tend to look pretty good, but they're Nintendo characters. But the Disney Infinity things just look like far and away the best. They're beautiful.
Oh yeah. Oh, hands down.
Well, part of it.
Oh, they're gorgeous.
like with the Olivia Wilde thing, I think that when they actually have like human actors that they base the figures off of, they have to get the likeness rights. So like, and they have to actually have the actors and actresses sign off on it. Because I remember when they were doing Maleficent for the last set, Angelina Jolie actually had to sign off on it, and I guess like sent back a note saying that hey, the kids love it too. Like they actually will submit these for final approval to the people who they're modeled after. So that's why a lot of them look alike.
How crazy is it that this art style? I mean, I've fawned all over the art style for Disney Infinity before, but how crazy is it that this art style is flexible enough that it can represent straight up cartoon characters like Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse, you know, kind of new Pixar cartoon characters like anger or sadness, and you know, human analogs like Olivia Wilde as the Tron character.
Are you saying Olivia Wilde is a human analog?
Yeah. Or Harrison Ford.
She's human adjacent.
Young Harrison Ford as Han Solo. Like this one art style has been applied to each of those, and it all looks cohesive and it all fits.
Yeah,
it kills it.
Arguably better than even like Skylanders, you know, has a cohesive art style. Like the Disney Infinity stuff all looks correct together, which is really impressive.
Yeah. And it's like amazing how they can evoke that actor with very little detail. Like if you look at Han Solo, that is unquestionably Harrison Ford. But
it's sort of like the caricature thing where you just pick out a few of the biggest, most obvious characterizing features and you accent those.
Run with it.
And to go with what Lacker said, like $1 gizmos that unlock powers from your Skylanders, they kind of do that with Disney Infinity. They have they have the power.
And
discs. They exist already.
201, the power discs are basically useless. Like there are a couple that are kind of cool, but it is clearly just another way for them to get money, which is fine. Like that's what this whole thing is.
Pack. Like I'm sure that in the planning meetings they were like, we need the figures. But we can't make those blind because that would piss everybody off. So we need a blind pack option. So we need some sort of blind pack thing.
Yeah, they changed that for this new one, but yeah, that was how they were doing it before. Like now it's just $10 and it gets you like 4 discs that you know exactly what they do. So there's putting out an original trilogy set and all that. So.
Yeah, it's $10 for 4 discs. Holy shit.
Yeah, like still, I wouldn't pay it. If I were you, I wouldn't I wouldn't pay it.
That is impressive.
Unless you really, really want Luke Skywalker in his flight suit. If that really means something to you.
On Disney Infinity has always kind of been like it. I prefer Skylanders gameplay. I prefer the sort of like the Diablo light run around, beat stuff up, get experience thing, which Disney Infinity does, and its combat this year is better. But I still think it's not quite there. I don't know how much of this is just it bothers me that the primary attack isn't on square. That's probably a significant portion of it, because triangle makes no fucking sense. Stop doing that, guys.
Well, it makes even less sense in like the vehicle sections where it's like, okay, to fire the lasers on the Millennium Falcon, hit triangle. Like, no. I don't want to do that. That doesn't work.
That's why. Yeah. Although I will say, like, speaking of the art style looking cohesive, those little vehicle segments where you're in like this little pudgy Millennium Falcon that matches the art style of the figures. Again, it's just executed brilliantly. It looks so great. So that's kind of all I have to say about Disney Infinity. Any other thoughts on Disney Infinity as a Toys to Life model?
Like, I don't know if Andrew you had any, because I wanted to expand on something, but I'll let you go first.
I have Disney Infinity's. I have no experience with Disney Infinity besides like I have an Obi-Wan figure at my desk and I really want Jack Skellington. That's as far as I've gone.
You could probably get Jack for pretty cheap nowadays.
I know. I'm just lazy.
Well, So I was going to expand because you mentioned, like, we were talking about the business models and how, like, there is like definitely that dark undercurrent to a lot of this. As cool and as cute and as fun as this stuff is, I mean, it is very much, this is another way to kind of like make additional profit off of this stuff. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but and we'll probably talk about this later, because I noticed one thing that came up a lot in the comments were the question of like parents and kind of like how they deal with the stuff with their kids. But I think that the thing that bugs me about Disney Infinity to this day is that you still, and you alluded to this earlier, you still can't cross over between universes. And I think, to me, the biggest problem I have with Disney Infinity as a concept, because it's my favorite of all of them, but the thing that bugs me is that it's very much driven by the fact that it is a way to promote in a synergistic fashion between the different aspects of Disney. And the different aspects of Disney don't always play well nicely. Like Marvel, I think, has some very strict things saying they don't want their characters showing up in Disney stuff. And so we can't have like commercials or games or anything that cross those over, only in the Disney Infinity toy box, but the toy box isn't always the most interesting part. Like, I want to have a game where I can have Donald Duck fighting symbiotes. I want him to play in the Spider-Man set, but he can't do that.
Like I said when it came out, I want Mulan in my Star Wars set, and you can keep calling her, Asuka or whatever. I don't care if it breaks the fiction. Like, just let me use her.
Well, they already don't call the characters specifically, right? They'll say something like Jedi instead. Yeah. So like you could still do it. You get away with it. And a lot of the figures you use don't even show up in the cutscenes. So there's no reason you couldn't do it.
Or they just have like the four characters that are in that set always show up in the cutscenes, no matter who you've been using or how many you've been using. It's always those four anyway. So who cares?
And they're fixing that somewhat with like Toy Box Takeover and Speedway and stuff like that, but it's still very much, for a game that's built around imagination, it doesn't let you really have imagination. Like, you can't mix and match because of the sort of responsibilities that they have to these different franchises and the fact they don't want cross-pollination. And that to me is the biggest bummer at the core of Disney Infinity. And the thing that I think LEGO Dimensions, even though I think it's an incredibly expensive game to get into, I think that's what they're doing right, in a very meaningful way. So
there's just the mix and matchness of it, and mix and match with like the weirdest properties, like stuff that I didn't even know WB would have any interest in.
Why?
Portal and whatever.
To me, this one, I think they're just like aiming like, what's going to get Reddit really, really excited?
Yeah.
So Doctor Who, Portal, like all the stuff.
We've been browsing our video games for years, and we've distilled it to these.
You guys want a Portal amiibo? Guess what? Like, the next best thing.
There are a few other things that you brought up that I want to definitely get to, and you sort of alluded to one of them. Manside said one of his reservations is the initial $90 buy-in and the fact that I have to get a disc because I have to get a pad and all of that bullshit. For years, I think this is actually the first year that Skylanders isn't doing this, but for years, you needed the new Portal, the new reading pad, basically. Disney Infinity has been a lot better about that, where they're using the same thing they always have, and if you have the first one, it's still good.
The only
Skylanders
exception is
for years has been like, you need the new one because it's the only one that can read the traps, or it's the only one that can read the Swap Force, and it got pretty obnoxious having like all these. It was the Guitar Hero problem all over again. It's like, well, now I got like 5 portals. I don't need 5
You'll never
portals.
use it again.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of like the big thing is like you just have all this extra stuff in your house now. It's a lot more manageable than Guitar Hero and Rock Band, but it's still there. Like,
yes,
it doesn't play well with the digital future at all, which I think, and I kind of also wonder if like that isn't kind of their sort of their caveat or the bone they're throwing retailers by saying, hey, we're going to try to keep pushing towards digital, but we're going to make these things that you have to play the game still something you can buy in the store.
Yeah,
I think that might be one of the ways they do that.
If it came down to it, couldn't you just like make an app that like your phone reads the figure and then it's there? Now you never need a portal again.
Can't the Wii Pad? Can you use the NFC on it?
Yes,
or
but oddly
that not work?
When they sort of pitched that, it was like, oh, cool. So on Wii U, you won't need a portal, but they've never done it with the Wii U.
No,
they've always just sold portals. It's been pretty weird. So moving on to the third sort of big pillar so far, and we'll see if LEGO Dimensions is the fourth one. We might talk about that a little bit if we have time. But moving on to sort of the third big pillar quickly here. Lacker also asked, why aren't amiibos available? This is the element in the room when you're talking about amiibo. I wanted a little Mac, and when I went to check, I had to pay a lot more than retail. Meanwhile, the aisles at the stores are filled with Marios and Luigis. Why wouldn't Nintendo just ship out more batches to meet demand?
I mean,
amiibos are precious commodities that you need to wake up at 5 a.m. for to get the good ones. That's how it works.
There's no good reason. Like, there's no good answer to this.
There was a good reason at first when those first shortages came up. It's like, oh, okay, well they were surprised. They didn't know. At this point though, they know. Come on.
Yeah, and they also the thing that I've never bought with like because a lot of the rarities is the really kind of obscure franchises like Fire Emblem and stuff like that. Yet Nintendo knows how rabid the fan base is for these things, right? They have to know. And they know that even though this isn't going to be something on the scale of Mario, it's not going to have a mainstream appeal, there are going to be a huge amount of people that want these things. So I just don't get how you don't learn that. And they keep underprinting those characters when they're clearly very highly in demand. That's the thing that I still am baffled by. Like, I get why there's so much Mario and Luigi. Like, those are going to be, like, their franchise flagship characters. You want a lot of those. You want a lot of the third-party characters, that kind of stuff. But why you don't make more Fire Emblem characters just completely eludes me.
Yeah, it's super
That blows
bizarre.
my mind.
I know we are on a time limit here, so I want to make sure we address this last question before we move on into other things. Dale asked, I think this is just a good general question to address. Dale asked, how old do kids need to be able to enjoy Skylanders or Amiibo figures in the video game sense? So what is our own personal age recommendation for how old you think you'd have to be before you could get into this stuff?
Well, let me ask you, Steve. You're the dad. You're dad.
Okay, 7 months I think is probably
doing right now?
too young.
Yeah.
She's not quite ready for it. But I saw some people recommending 5 years old is fine, 4 years old is fine. If you set it to one of the easier
I would say
difficulties.
5.
And the other thing about these is it's pretty easy to play co-op as long as you just have 2 controllers. So just put 2 figures on there. So if you're an older player, if you're the parent or the guardian or the babysitter or whatever, and you just want to kind of bail them out if they get in trouble, but help them through. You can probably go, pretty young with how old they'd have to be for these things.
Yep, and I think too, it really depends, on the kid. Honestly, some kids are gonna be kind of precocious, and some kids will just they might like the sound and the movement and all that more than anything. And that's a form of enjoyment. I don't know. My wife's cousins, they brought their baby over. She's 7 months, and she was sitting there playing Disney Infinity with me. And by playing, I mean she had her leg on the controller and was making the camera go around and kept hitting the PlayStation button that kind of exited out of the game constantly. But she liked the figures, she liked the movement, she liked watching Donald Duck run around and stuff like that. And though her interest in the figures was mostly
Donald Duck run around.
Yeah, I mean her interest in the figures was mostly chewing on them, I discovered. So I'm glad they don't use lead-based paint.
For most babies, yeah. So that is the big topic. Real quick, I'll go around the table. We've seen Lego, we've seen Disney and its bajillion properties. We've seen Skylanders with an original property. We've seen Nintendo properties. Say somebody else jumps on the toy to life bandwagon. Who do you think it is, and what do you think they do?
I mean, Hasbro's already in it now, right? They have their own kind of thing. Yeah, they have their
what are they doing?
Toy box, right? It's is it Hasbro of He-Man and whatnot?
You mean the Toy Soldiers?
Toy Soldiers.
Yeah,
So,
that was kind of. I mean, that's not Toys to Life. That was a weird retro reference in a Toy Soldiers game. But yeah, I'm just throwing this question out there. If there's anything that stands out to us, we don't necessarily need to answer it if nothing does.
Yeah.
I
feel like EA. My quick answer is I feel like EA is going to be looking for a way to jump into this, and I'm not sure exactly how yet. But I think that has to be what's on the horizon. They're seeing their biggest competition.
Idea.
Disney Interactive is getting to be pretty big, but Activision has always been big, and so they're seeing some of their biggest competition make money hand over fist on this stuff. And I don't even know what EA would do to make that happen, but I feel like they have to be looking into some sort of licensing opportunity to make it happen.
Football mans. You collect little football mans.
Yeah, little football mans. Like the little, in the 90s they had the football action figures.
Yeah.
Just
those are still around. I'm gonna say 2 things here. One, I don't think many more companies can get in. I don't think this market can sustain that many. I'm not. Well, I mean, it's making money now, but we're already seeing the wind come out of Skylanders a little bit, right? We're already seeing. I think arguably, if you look at the way that the Disney Infinity sets keep dropping, the starter bundle for the PS4 started out at $115, and it's been dropping another $10 every week in sales. So I don't know if it's selling the way they expected it to. I mean, they're that sort of thing. And Lego Dimensions, I think, is so I think they have severely overestimated the willingness of people to pay for it. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the idiot. But I'm looking at this it's
Lego
$30.
Is huge, though.
It is huge, but I'm looking at this it's $30 for these little tiny figures and a package. I'm I'm not paying that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to spend $100 on the starter. So I don't know. Like, and plus we also run into the question of retail space. How much more space are retailers going to want to devote to this stuff? Because it's taking up a lot of room. It's not as bad as the plastic instruments thing, but it's still there. So
which are also coming back.
having said that, I'm going to take it a different step and say that I think that we could see something interesting on the PC. And I think we could see something interesting on the PC and like the hobby enthusiast level. What if we took a game like Warhammer or War Machine and had certain figures that you can scan into it, and you could play with your figures, your collection, and sort of like a virtual space.
That would make it so much more approachable for people.
Now you're thinking like a CFO. There you go.
Somebody hire me. Give me $7 million a year. I'll do this.
Games Workshop, come on.
So I know you got money.
You got all that figurine, all that sweet pewter figurine money.
Yeah, well, because I see people buying these figures. I go to the hobby shop and like they're spending that much money already. Why not put another $10 in there, get an NFC figure or NFC chip that you can, have this army. You can have it in multiple specs.
That's pretty genius. I gotta say, that is an amazing idea.
That's why I'm Dr. Games.
Yeah, of course. So let's move on into our sponsors, Brian.
Why, thank you, Steve. Let's give it up for our sponsors. Of course, our sponsor, Audible.com. They are offering you, the listeners of the Shack News Chattycast, a free audiobook download as well as a free 30-day trial to check out their service. Lots of great books on games, tech, hundreds of other topics to choose from. Every week, we're going to highlight one that we've personally enjoyed and think you might too. Now, we spent a lot of time talking about the academic stuff, the history, the technology of games. Let's do something completely different. Steve, what book are you recommending?
Oh, this week I'm recommending Star Wars Aftermath by Chuck Wendig. In the months following the destruction of the second Death Star, the Empire is in shambles and struggling to reassert itself with a secret meeting on a remote planet, but it didn't count on a group of reluctant new heroes discovering its plans. I actually just finished this book yesterday, and I absolutely loved it. Aftermath is a foothold in the new expanded universe continuity leading up to the release of The Force Awakens. I finished this book on a recent trip, and having read and listened to a lot of Star Wars books, I am glad to say this is among the best. Wendig balances humor, heart, and action with a new cast of lovable rogues that would make Han Solo jealous. He also punctuates the main story with brief interludes, short stories that show the breadth of reactions across the galaxy to the Empire's defeat. It is a must-read for Star Wars fans and a great entry point into expanded fiction.
Very cool. And you can listen to that or any one of over 150,000 other titles with your free audiobook download. Just visit audibletrial.com/chattycast. That's audibletrial.com/chattycast to get your free 30-day trial today.
Thank you.
I really want to read that book.
It's very good. It really is. I mentioned it in the same breath as Timothy Zahn, which is like the godfather of Star Wars books, for people who know. It's really very good.
How does it compare to Splinter of the Mind's Eye?
It's orders of magnitude better. Splinter of the Mind's Eye, for those who do not know, it was written in 1983 or something. It was like the very first Star Wars expanded universe book, and it was back when they didn't seem to know how to do that with any kind of.
Just say it's garbage and get it over with.
I mean, they threw in a bunch of like sci-fi bullshit that fits in a lot of sci-fi books, but not into Star Wars very well. So it's awful. It's a bad book. Anyway, so that's an anti-recommendation.
But Star Wars Aftermath, very much go check that out on audible.com/chattycast. Audibletrial.com/chattycast.
So we're going to move on to Newsybits. I'm just going to do one real quick because I want to make sure we have time for Beat the Doc. Star Fox Zero was delayed. I don't think there's much to say about that other than, oh, thank God, because I played that at E3.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Oh, thank God.
So what we're actually going to talk about is The Late Show with Stephen Colbert is hosting a No Man's Sky demo. And I just thought this was kind of interesting. We saw, we've seen late night hosts do video game coverage before. Conan has his Clueless Gamer segment. Jimmy Fallon has had some game developers on. Jimmy Fallon is kind of younger, and Conan's whole shtick is that he's older and doesn't get it. So I think it's kind of funny that Stephen Colbert, who is probably more Conan's age range, is still being kind of welcoming to that audience. So, Brian.
It's all millennials.
Yeah. I think in part they're chasing Fallon because Fallon's one of the first to get out in front of that. Now, I personally prefer Colbert to Fallon by just. It's not even close. I do not enjoy Fallon's Tonight Show. I think that it's well, anyway, this isn't about what I feel.
That's a whole different podcast right there.
Yeah, like if you want to talk about late night shows, I've got all kinds of opinions. But
stay tuned for the late night Chattycast.
But it's interesting because Colbert has always kind of been, even though he is towards that older spectrum, he's always been a lot more hipper. He's hipper. He's trendy. He's hip. Like he didn't really like play a lot of video games, but he at least knew or had writers who knew the difference. I think Jon Stewart actually did kind of talk about how he played video games and stuff like that, and had a lot to kind of, like he talked about playing like Dead to Rights on the original Xbox and stuff like that. So I don't think it's unreasonable or ridiculous to imagine that Colbert has some experience with games. And I mean,
he's hipper, and he's also like a little bit nerdy. He would wear his Lord of the Rings on his sleeve, you know. But I think it's interesting. I mean, just talking in general terms, Colbert seems to be, I think, more than most late night hosts lately. There's been a lot of shakeup in late night in the last, five-ish years. More than a lot of late night hosts, I think he's trying a different tone. You know, from what I've seen of his show.
Have you watched?
He's invited. Yeah, I've seen one full episode and a few like clips here and there of other things. But he's inviting on a lot of political people, which is kind of par for the course for
Colbert
for late night shows. But a lot of them are very fawning, like oh ha 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 ha, But he's actually doing kind of deeper interviews. The one with Joe Biden, whatever you think of Joe Biden, the interview itself was like really human and
that was good.
And kind of heartbreaking. He had Ted Cruz on, and I didn't actually watch that interview, but I read that the audience booed him, and he stopped the audience and said like, "Hey, this is my guest. Do not boo him." So he's bringing like a certain kind of like respectfulness of political discourse from the Colbert Show to his Tonight Show, and that's very different. And I think covering video games is just another way of differentiating himself from sort of the usual like. Just fawning, hey, tell us about your movie. Kind of late night interview.
And I think No Man's Sky is kind of an interesting choice. Like I don't know if I talked about, like, I have a lot of skepticism about No Man's Sky, but I think that it's the kind of game that's going to demo very, very well. And a lot of the audience that tunes in for late night shows is still relatively older, so this is the kind of thing they will look at and like, wow, look at what they're doing. So
look what video games can do now.
Yeah, it's a smart choice. Like, I think it's a very smart choice, and I think that Colbert, being the kind of guy he is, will have a lot of fun with that.
And if you brought on like Assassin's Creed, it wouldn't be the same.
No,
it has to be a game like this that's sort of like pushing the medium in some way that he can play with.
Aspect,
Or like, because you want something that's visually interesting and engaging, and I think that game fits those criteria. So. I think it's a good thing, and again, I prefer Colbert to Fallon by like orders of magnitude. So
leagues. Leagues.
So if him doing that, I'm great. I'm all for it.
We're fawning on Colbert, but he is really rather good. Like I was a little afraid of his transition out of that Colbert Report character, but he really seems to have made the transition.
I can go into a lot with this because I've been following his career. He's very interesting, and he's getting his footing very well. But he's still. I enjoy that he gets different kinds of guests with his show. It's not always the Hollywood actors and whatnot. The Bernie Sanders episode, he invited a dance troupe involved, and he was just giving them a legitimate interview, talking to them like other late night shows would like mock and maybe make fun of something like that, but he doesn't. He legitimately respects all of his guests.
Well, it's almost like a journalist approach where it's like, I mean, part of journalism is just natural curiosity, where it's you don't necessarily have to be in love with a concept or even know about a concept that well, but you're curious about it and you want to ask a lot of questions. And it seems like he's taking that approach towards politicians and perhaps video games and
the fact that my generation just doesn't care about late night shows. We don't watch it, and it's just their attempt at and Colbert's the best person to get us hooked on to it. So I mean, this is a very smart idea.
Fallon's whole deal is like he doesn't do the show so much. He's used it as a vehicle to do viral videos. That's what gets him attention. And his viral videos, I'm just gonna say it. I think he panders so hard to the audience. Like, I just saw they did a Keenan and Kel reunion. Like, okay, we get it. You're pandering to millennials. Cool. It's just so transparent. Fallon bugs me.
Let's move on before we get contacted by Fallon's lawyers to Beat the Doc.
Right.
We're going to pit Andrew
And
against.
Conan's good too. I like Conan. I like Conan a lot.
It is hilarious, Brian, that you brought up Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles earlier, and I will tell you why. Today's game is called Teenage Mutant Ninja Skylanders. As you know, Skylanders has a tendency to name its characters after groan-worthy animal wordplay, not unlike a certain action figures for a little 90s show you may have heard of. In this game, I will name a character, and you have to tell me if it's a Skylander or an obscure secondary Ninja Turtle character.
I have a feeling this one's going to be competitive.
Yeah.
Ooh,
yeah.
okay.
I think it might be. All right. Andrew, first one up. Sergeant Bananas. Sergeant Bananas.
I'm going to say that's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
That is a Teenage
character.
Mutant Ninja Turtle. You get a point.
I'm on the
One for Andrew.
board.
On the board. All right. Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Broccoli Guy.
That's obviously Ninja Turtle.
That is a Skylander. That is a
What?
Skylander.
Wow.
Sorry. He was from Trap Team. One of the most ridiculous ones. Andrew.
Broccoli Guy? That's all they had? No, that is so bad that I demand a new one. Because that is
That wasn't
you assumed it was
the 80s. Are you serious?
That's way
Whatever,
too
fine.
That's way too stupid for $1 million investment. That had to be a cartoon.
There's no way they'd let that out the door at Activision. And yet,
Oh.
because I'm like, I can see an obscure. Okay, so he's a giant stalk of broccoli. He's Broccoli Guy. Sure, you buy that at the five and dime. Yeah.
To
Is he
clarify, he
broccoli?
was not technically a figure you could collect. He was a one of the villains you could trap, but he's a Skylanders character. Yeah, Broccoli Guy.
Okay.
So Andrew, Hallowcat. Hallowcat.
Hallowcat is a
Yes,
Skylander.
It's spelled like Halo, but with two L's. No, that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That was an obscure Ninja Turtle character. All right, Brian, you can catch up with this one. Crypt King. With a K, with two Ks, I should say. Crypt King. If they had one more word in there for the alliteration, it would be KKK. But Crypt King.
So there's a Rat King in Ninja Turtles. I can't imagine they try to have two monarchy-related characters. I gotta say, it's a Skylander.
That is a Skylander. He was an undead Trap Team character, one of the Trap Masters in last year's game.
Crypt King for Christmas. I knew that one.
Yep. He's a pretty cool looking one, dude.
He's cool.
Yeah. He's like a sarcophagus looking guy. Anyway, Andrew.
Yes.
Thumpback.
Thumpback.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing how similar these are?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I don't even know.
No, that was
God.
a Skylander.
I knew that was a giant, right?
I think so. Yeah, that was the water giant.
Whale. That one I knew.
Yeah. So last one. This is the tiebreaker. We're going to do it buzz-in style. If you think you know, say buzz. This is the tiebreaker. Half court.
Buzz, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
That is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yes, he was.
Yeah.
I think some sort of mutant basketball player.
That sounds.
Let's not
Teenage Mutant
investigate
Ninja Turtle-y.
further than we have to.
We don't need to know any more than that. So Andrew, you have beat the doc. Congratulations, you win.
You have been a worthy foe.
But yeah, those naming conventions very oddly similar with their wordplay.
I still think Broccoli Guy was that.
Is he broccoli?
He's he's just he's broccoli with a face. Like
Okay.
It's the
They couldn't call him like broccoli. They couldn't call him like.
Nope. Just Broccoli Guy. I think that's the only one that I just recalled from memory.
Couldn't call him Broccolival or something. I don't know. Broccoli Guy. That's all they got.
Yeah, it was pretty lame. I'm not kidding.
Oh my god! I have to look this up. I'm going to look him up because I need a face to channel my anger.
The face is just eyes and a mouth on a thing of broccoli. I think they weren't even trying.
If you want.
Yeah. So that is the show. That is
I
the
see you, Broccoli Guy. You are my new face of hatred.
That is the Chattycast for this week. Andrew, before we go off, do you have any video content you want to plug that's going up on the site this week?
This week we have some Tomb Raider. I have a Tomb Raider interview that I talked with someone from Crystal Dynamics, which I was blown away by. I always say I've never had a PlayStation, never had to play Tomb Raider. This is my first Tomb Raider experience. Rise of the Tomb Raider was a lot of fun. and we'll be getting more Halo content, Halo 5 content out the
More
door by
Halo.
because we gotta talk about Halo, and I can't say what until embargoes are up. So be prepared for Halo stuff.
Okay.
Be prepared. I've got my Skylanders review going up at some point when I finish it, and my Animal Crossing review going up at some point when I finish it. And the reason we're actually recording late this week is because I was on a trip for something that I don't think I can say what it was, but the preview is going up next Monday, so keep your eyes out for that. A little bit of preview coverage that necessitated a lengthy trip that kept me out for our usual recording date. And so yeah, that is the show. So for Steve Watts.
I'm Broccoli Guy.
and we will see you on Chatty.